We are having a lunch now, like 20 minutes ago. It's 8 of us and some journalists, conservative. Even them. We're having this conversation about what happened in Brussels yesterday. Yesterday, there was a terror attack, shootings with AK-47, 3 days in a row. Like every day you have a shooting. So we are having this conversation and suddenly one of the journalists saying, that was migrants. I said, why are you whispering? And I was like, migrants use AK-47 to attack. You see how the mindset is changed, how people are afraid to name and call the facts. I don't care. So when you ask me how do they react, they are still, I think, in a state of mind when they are afraid to say as it is. And the fact and the numbers from Eurostat, from Interior Ministry in Poland or in other country, we know that many crimes are committed by illegal migrants. That is a fact. And they are calling me racists because I said as it is. Most of them coming from Muslim countries. That is a data. It's a fact. They called me Islamophobe. I don't have a phobia. I'm not afraid of them.
All right, member of European Parliament, Dominik Tarczynski.
There you go. You must be Polish. There must be a drop of Polish blood in you.
I got Tarczynski right, but I screwed up Dominik. That was weird.
But it's much easier when they say Mr. Zero.
Yeah,
because of this interview in 2018, and that's quite famous, and it helped me because Tarczynski. Who knows who Tarczynski is? How to pronounce it? Dominik is much easier.
Dominik is easier, but I will see how many more times I can say Tarczynski correctly. But we only have about 15 minutes. We are here at ARC. You are from Poland. It seems to me that Poland is one of the few countries in Europe that is doing things right at the moment. You guys used to be the brunt of an awful lot of jokes.
Well,
and yet you're doing
Polish
something
jokes,
right.
Not anymore.
Nobody's laughing anymore.
Not anymore, because Poland is the only country with no terrorist attack. Like zero illegal migration equals 0 terrorist attacks.
What about Hungary?
Hungary, they are doing good.
Close,
yes,
right?
They are doing very good. But when you compare all the data, like unemployment, because everyone is asking why you say Poland is so special. So official data from Eurostat, the lowest unemployment in European Union, Poland. Numbers of terrorist attacks, 0. Highest GBT after COVID, Poland. So when you look at the data and what is happening, you can tell we are leader now in Europe. So Hungary is doing good. Our government, unfortunately, for sometimes is liberal, but because of our conservative government for 8 years, past 8 years, we set a very strict regulations on migration. That was the most important thing for our government. And this is beautiful 0. I'm going to repeat it because nobody believes that Poland took 0 illegal migrants. Like when they tried to cross Belarusian-Polish border, they managed to kill one of our soldiers with the spear, illegals. They managed to kill him. Straight after that, our parliament passed a law that we can use live bullets, and you will be killed if you will try to cross illegally border and harm one of our servicemen. You will be dead, shot dead. So if someone is asking me why I think Poland is so special, it's not about thinking, it's not my opinion, it's about data. If you do not want illegal migration, you have to be very radical. So when they call me far right, I love it. Yes, I am far radical right, thank God.
Yeah, well, we've played a couple of videos of speeches that you've given where they're referring to you as far right.
I love
Usually
it.
I come back and it made sense to me.
There is no bigger compliment when communists call you a far right. That was my grandfather history. That was my father history. That is my history, and my future children will be far right. I hope. That's their choice, obviously, but I do hope.
Boy, times are changing.
You never know. But I think we should stop feel ashamed when we are called far right. How far is your love to your family? is far.
Endless. It's far.
It's endless. So when we are called far right, yes, I am far right because righteousness, conservatism is the value I believe in. So when they call me that I'm very far into what I believe, I'm proud of myself.
So how is it, you mentioned 8 years of conservative governance, but
Right.
how is it that Poland did not fall into the trap that so much of Europe fell into over the last 2 decades?
Ha! That's because of our personal experience as a country. Poland is between Russia and Germany. Because of our position on the map, throughout the ages, we suffered a lot. Partitions, 17th, 18th century. Poland was not on the map for 123 years because of Russia and Germany, because of partitions. Then we had World War II. Germany attacked Poland on 1st of September. 16 days later, Russia attacked from the east. So Poland was attacked again when the World War II started. After World War II, Poland was under Soviet occupation. So we suffered 70 years of communism, which means that we know what it means to lose your sovereignty and freedom.
Yeah.
We know and we feel much better than others. When you spend 123 years without being on the map as a nation and you survive, not only that, you're building yourself, then you suffer communism for 70 years. You cherish and love your freedom. You know what the freedom is. It's not just a word. It's something much deeper in you, in your family, in your personal experience. So why? Because of this experience, we knew what it means to let aliens in. We had aliens in the past. Different form, different shape, different reason. But we know when aliens took over. We do not want anyone to take over our country. They will not take it by the tanks. They will not take it by machine guns. They will not take it by ideology. We would never let leftism take over our country. What they did to America was a rape on your society, on your brains.
We're getting out of it now, fortunately.
Now, yes, thank God. And I'm serious. Thanks to God Almighty, Trump won. I do believe that. The fact that he survived the assassination was absolutely miracle to me as a believer, as a Christian. So, but what you went through was absolutely horrible, and you will pay consequences, unfortunately, for some time, because you cannot get rid of this ideology and what they have done to the generation of youth, especially teenagers. It will harm you for some time. It will not happen in Poland because we never let any leftists to take over, because we cherish our family values, which means family and the country.
So when you say that the liberals are in power now, are you concerned that they could usher in some of
Yes,
this?
but obviously. But when you build a wall, physical wall, to destroy this wall, it's going to take some time. They are not able to do it. We have presidential election this year in May. I do believe we're going to win this one. We actually won the last elections as well, but they were able to create the coalition. Yeah. So we are having the election in Poland now, presidential. We're going to win. We're going to go back to normal day in the office like every day for the past 8 years. It is very important that Mr. Trump won. He gave us a fresh breath, and again, far right conservatives are full of hope. We have people from around Europe in here, and everyone is like, thank God this man won.
Yeah.
He showed us the way. He's an inspiration, and he showed us that we can win. Even when you have CNN against you, all the mainstream media against you, Soros against you, and most powerful people in the world against you, you can win. Soros is very much present in Europe. He is trying to, manipulate us. We are not stupid. We can see things, and we are ready to fight. This is not a joke. We're not gonna, you're not gonna let anyone take Poland or Christian Europe. because this is Christian continent, and all these games with society will not take part, will not happen. It will not happen in Poland.
So when you talk to your Western European counterparts who have allowed so much of this immigration disaster, and now they're dealing with crime and just the cultural rot and all of the stuff that so many people are talking about in this very city right now, what do they say? Do they say, boy, we really dropped the ball on this? What can we learn from you? Or are their heads still in the sand?
I'll give you an example of state of mind people in Europe. We are having a lunch now, like 20 minutes ago. It's 8 of us and some journalists, conservative. Even them. We're having this conversation about what happened in Brussels yesterday. Yesterday, there was a terror attack, shootings with AK-47, 3 days in a row. Like every day you have a shooting. So we are having this conversation, and suddenly one of the journalists saying, "Those migrants." I said, "Why are you whispering?" And I was like, "Migrants use AK-47 to attack." You see how the mindset is changed, how people are afraid to name and call the facts. I don't care. So when you ask me how do they react, they are still, I think, in a state of mind when they are afraid to say as it is. And the fact and the numbers from Eurostat, from Interior Ministry in Poland or in other country, we know that many crimes are committed by illegal migrants. That is a fact. And they are calling me racists because I said as it is. Most of them coming from Muslim countries. That is a data. It's a fact. They called me Islamophobe. I don't have a phobia. I'm not afraid of them.
Right. A phobia is also an irrational.
So we have to, first of all, if you want to win a lottery, you have to buy a ticket. To understand the problem, you have to call it out. If it's only in your brain and you're thinking it and you're not taking action, you will not succeed. So what I think is we should call as it is, show the data, compare it with Poland, and say why Poland zero terrorist attack. There is no terrorist attacks. It's only one country in Europe without this red dot. Because there was zero illegal migration. It's simple as that. It's very simple.
What should people know about Poland that they don't know? I think most of what we think of that part of the world now gets attributed to Hungary maybe because Orban seems sort of larger than life or something like that. So from an American perspective, we don't talk about Poland that often, except that as I said, we've played a couple of your speeches and we see some sanity. But what should we know about Poland that we don't think about?
Let's have a look on historical perspective. Poland is a 1,000 years history country. 1,000 years. We accept Christianity in 966. Throughout the ages, Poland suffered a lot, as I told you. But after World War II, communism generated the image of Poland of poor, gray, communist country.
Right.
Now economy is booming. People are moving from different countries in the world to Poland to invest. So the most important from your perspective, Americans' perspective, is that Poland is the most important, in my opinion, partner for America, ally. That's why Mr. Trump decided to move troops from Germany to Poland. There was a reason. That is why we decided to build Fort Trump, the place where army will operate. So Poland is very important, not only because we are a neighboring country with Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Germany, but also because of our roots, because what we achieved throughout the ages. And very important thing is that communism was destroyed, I must call it destroyed, by Reagan and John Paul II. Mm-hmm. This is what we know. This is what we experience. This is why we love America. This is why we are so grateful. This is why I spent so much time in America campaigning for Mr. Trump, because that was a hope, a real hope, not a poster. He was a hope for the common sense, because he used this term very often, not Republican, common sense party. Mm-hmm. It's just a common sense. Like this insane wokeness around America and the world destroyed families, destroyed our nation, whole generation. We're going to restore it.
From a guy that the New York Times once called alt-right, I will shake a far-right hand.
This is a symbol of America and Poland.
There
Thank
you
you
go.
so much.
If you're looking for more eye-opening and worldly conversations, make sure to dive into our international playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.
The problem in Britain, and I think in England in particular, is there's a question of identity and who belongs. And that's one of the things that's being addressed in this conference. And the current paradigm is that essentially there is no English identity, and therefore there is nothing to stop us considering people to be in the sort of like Baconian, interchangeable, non-sacred units. And we don't think of anything dignified and important about our own culture and our own country. So as far as we're concerned, it's just, well, we could just use this as an economic zone where we bring in 1 million migrants and let them have jobs, and then this improves the GDP. And not only is that not true, but it also drastically changes the character of what's happening.
I have an odd way of starting this interview, Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, which is, for all the years that I've known you, what do you consider yourself most? Are you a cultural critic? Are you a YouTuber? Are you just a guy in a suit who talks about politics? What are you?
I think I might be
In your own mind.
I might be all of those things.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm someone like yourself, actually, who's on a journey. Because we met many years ago as very normal liberal people, and
we were normal back then.
We
Isn't
were
that
normal.
something? Yeah.
Yeah, no, we were normal. On the Young Turks, you were the guy I'm most related to. I saw a lot of myself in you, and I can understand why you ended up having your schism. And it's interesting how like Anna's going down that same path now.
Yeah.
Because the more you dig into the doctrine of the left and the doctrine of liberalism itself, the more you realize that actually there are issues with this. And so this is why I ended up just doing a philosophy degree and setting up a philosophy website, loadseas.com, to really get to the bottom of what all of this means and why things are going so wrong. And we've arrived on an interesting sort of part of that arc, as it were, because finally the things we were saying in the wilderness many years ago are becoming accepted as doctrinal orthodoxy by the centre-right at this point, by the conservatives, that realize, oh, wait, there is no concourse with these people. We can't have a peace arrangement. We can't deal with it. No, they're here to destroy us. They're here to tear down our civilization and stigmatize us and drive us out. So we have to make sure that we have a hard barrier between, what they believe and what we believe, because otherwise they're going to continue like termites eating away at our very identities. And so when I think of it in that way, I suppose I'm some kind of rogue philosopher in some way. I mean, I did a degree of philosophy. Does that make me a philosopher?
I guess if you have a degree in it, we'll put philosopher under.
Why not? Yeah.
How about that?
If you want, I'm doing a master's in it now as well. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is worth mentioning that while you were watching me on the Young Turks, when I started waking up, and people that have been tracking us for it's a decade now, which is insane. But for people that have been paying attention that long, you were the guy. When I started waking up, everybody started saying, Dave, you've got to watch this guy. At that time, Sargon of Akkad, you've got to watch his videos. Your face wasn't even in the videos. It was the moniker and whatever, and you were laying out your classically liberal beliefs and how they were in conflict basically with the progressives. Interestingly, in the last couple of years, and last time I had you in studio, which was probably about 2 years ago now, you were talking about classical liberalism as a sort of incomplete philosophy.
Yeah.
And this has caused some tension with some of the classical liberals who like to believe it is a complete philosophy. Can we do a couple minutes on that?
Of course.
And for a guy that wrote a book defending classical liberalism.
So there's something interesting that happens when you have a denoted ideology, as in when you say, I have a series of propositions, and from these propositions I'm going to derive logical conclusions. What happens is you are extracting them out of the cultural context in which they exist. And so whenever you create a proposition, you necessarily ignore other things that are interrelated with that thing. And you say, right, this is the thing I'm going to focus on. And you don't notice that you're doing it, but in the back of your mind, it all kind of falls away. other presuppositions that are attached to it that brought you to that place. And so you start deriving conclusions, and these conclusions become abstract, not located in any one time, place, or people. And you say, well, these are therefore universal. And this is the problem with not just liberalism, but any ideology, is that it feels that it can be detached from where it came from and applied to anywhere in the world. But actually, in reality, to get to the point where you can identify a proposition that you could abstract, there was a huge amount of sort of cultural baggage and a mountain that had to be climbed to get to that point. And
basically thousands of years of stuff
precisely
to get there. Yeah.
And most of it's not rational either. Most of it isn't stuff that you thought about, like you consciously had a plan for. Most of it is kind of unconscious and irrational and just baked into the way that we behave. You know, the way that we, in the English-speaking world in particular, view the sort of sacred nature of our private property. This is a very English thing. And obviously the Americans and the Canadians and Australians have inherited this because of their English background. Well, of course it's my property, but that's actually not a given in everywhere in the world. So, I mean, there's a great book on called The Origins of English Individualism by a professor called Alan McFarlane. And he goes through the historical records and finds that actually going back to like 1200 in England, there's a thriving property market. Right? Now that's really weird because in peasant societies, you don't have a property market because all the property is collectively owned by a family unit that exists on the land over a long period of time. But in England, actually only about 1/3 of each village, the 3 generations live and die in it. So most people are actually moving around, purchasing property, buying and selling it. And so you can see why in the English-speaking world for 800 years we've done this. Mm-hmm. This becomes a core part of our character. And so we abstract that into capitalism. Well, it works for us because we've got the social systems required to make that work. We know how to deal with one another. We had high trust societies. And you see it in all of these small ways where it's interpersonal politeness, you know, the way that we say thank you, please and thank you and sorry and things like this, right? These are not universal characteristics. These are actually really particular characteristics to ourselves. So other Europeans even, like you can find Germans very standoffish and impolite, and especially the French as well. You can find them very impolite because they come from a different continuum of civilization. And so the issue with the ideology is when you do abstract it out, well, it is incomplete, definitionally incomplete, because you've got 4 or 5 predicates that you go, right, okay, this is everything is based on. But actually, there was a huge sort of morass of things that were happening, millions and millions of different interactions that were negotiated privately by individuals that forms this composite out of which you extracted it. It works in that context, but when you take it out of that context, you can find that it doesn't work and it can actually become destructive.
So would this be similar to the criticism that, say, Jordan Peterson, obviously, or some people have had of sort of the new atheist idea, which was that somehow the Enlightenment sprung out of nothing, in essence. And that's actually your argument or their argument, I think. And I do agree with this, actually, would be, no, that's not true. It came out of 2,000 years, basically, of warring and good ideas beating bad ideas, thus led to the Enlightenment, but it didn't just magic. The Enlightenment didn't spring out of nothing, in essence.
No, that's completely correct. The Enlightenment, I mean, intellectually, we can chart exactly the history of it. The sort of primary mover in the scientific revolution, which leads to I suppose we can call the Enlightenment, is Francis Bacon writing in contrast to the scholastics. I mean, in his day, he called the universities distempers of learning, as in it was doctrinaire, because the universities were founded by Christians. And so what they had was Aristotle's Organa, which is a collection of syllogistic logical works in order to try and derive truth from the premises set in the books, and then the Bible, of course. Now, actually, as much as these works are incredibly valuable, they didn't have real truths about the world. What they had is a set of premises upon which there were constant debates about what the correct interpretation was. And Bacon said, no, look, we need to burn all of these things. He called the various things that created a kind of illusion in our minds, the idols, right? He's like, look, we've got four different idols. We need to just get rid of them and just look with clear eyes about what is. And he wasn't an atheist or anything like that. He was like, no, we need to properly restore our knowledge to the state that it was with Adam in the Garden of Eden. We need to properly worship God's creation by properly understanding it. And you can see how it has traveled for a long time. This idea of we can use reason properly to manipulate and master nature. In that, though, there are also hidden dangers. Because, don't get me wrong, in 17th century England, that's a great idea, right? That's a brilliant idea because, like, you think of a hospital as a place where you go to get better, right? In 17th century England, the hospital is where you went to die.
Right.
The hospitals were awful. And so it was through this long, slow process of actually scientifically looking at the world and realizing how things had to be, that we end up with the wonderful world that we have around us. But the problem with that is that what we've done is admitted in some way, or discovered, we might be able to say, but I don't know how I exactly want to characterize it, but we've admitted that the universe kind of operates mechanically. And so in the sort of 18th and 19th centuries, we thought of it as a clockwork universe. And God was just a divine clockmaker. He wound the universe up and let it go. But the problem with that is that God becomes more remote, because until that point, everyone was like, well, God's in everything. And so everything that happens is God's providence, and if something bad happens that I can't explain, well, God just willed it. But science doesn't allow us to do that. Science allows us to find real material and mechanical ways of discovering these things. And that means that God becomes ever more remote. And eventually you get to the point where, at one point, a scientist presented Napoleon with an orrery, which, a thing that maps the planet's movements. And Napoleon's like, oh, that's brilliant, but where's God in this? And the scientist just said, well, I've got no need for the hypothesis of God. And you can see why there are so many atheists around now, right? And this is something that was baked into it. And so now we view ourselves as fungible material that can be manipulated. And we're at the point where we're thinking about, okay, well, we'll just have DIY children and things like this. Like, oh, come on, there's got to be a point at which we say, do we have the authority to just start manipulating future generations through genetic technology?
Right. There's got to be something either under that or above it,
exactly.
Depending on which way you
And
look
if there's not, then essentially what you've done is erase the concept of human dignity. And that's pretty terrible.
I will have you on again for a more proper, long-form philosophical sit-down. But just in the interest of time, just give me a minute or two diagnosis of what's going on in your country right now, because there is there's 4,000 people down there, and we obviously are in London. There is an awful lot of concern about this place, and that's in stark contrast to what people are saying about America right now, which I agree with, which is that it seems we're entering our golden age now, or at the very least, things are turning around, right? To what degree, I guess we'll find out, but it doesn't seem that way here.
The problem in Britain, and I think in England in particular, is there's a question of identity and who belongs. And that's one of the things that's being addressed in this conference. And the current paradigm is that essentially there is no English identity, and therefore there is nothing to stop us considering people to be in the sort of like Baconian interchangeable non-sacred units. And we don't think of anything dignified and important about our own culture and our own country. So as far as we're concerned, it's just, well, we could just use this as an economic zone where we bring in 1 million migrants and let them have jobs, and then this improves the GDP. I mean, not only is that not true, but it also drastically changes the character of what's happening. And so everyone feels depressed. And one thing that is a difficult thing to accept and understand is that when lots of people who are very similar are in a particular place, you get a kind of psychic map on the landscape where everyone basically has a certain level of predictability about what's going to happen tomorrow. If I walk around the corner, I might bump into some Englishman and he'll say good morning and walk on. Or if I walk around the corner in London, I don't know what's going to happen. It could be some masked youths who have machetes or something, right? And I might have to run for my life. And so you can feel the sort of psychic sense of safety that people have in a place. In England, that's very much retreated. And if you go into a pub, you find these little islands of Englishness now, where you go in and you can feel the psychic landscape where everyone in here knows a lot about each other, even though they don't know each other, because they come from the same culture and everything is predictable again. And so you can feel what England used to feel like everywhere in these little islands now. And that's what's gone wrong, I think.
So next time we do this in a pub.
I would love to.
All right. If you're looking for more eye-opening and worldly conversations, make sure to dive into our international playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a wide variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. All right, humans and other assorted life forms, it is January 24th, 2025, and on this Friday, I have a special co-host joining me from Communist California. That's right, I have the OG Gavin Newsom destroyer and host of the Adam Carolla Show, my good friend Adam Carolla. Adam, how are you?
I'm well, Dave. Thanks for having me.
You are in Los Angeles, in your studio, I see, but as I understand it, you are still living with Dr. Drew, which sounds like a reality show to me, but you're actually, because you're out of your house, right? Because of the fires.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to return to my home in Malibu, so I'm just sort of a rambling man, but I rambled over to Drew's house. And I've been there for quite some time. Drew's an empty nester now. So, he's got 7,000 square feet and just him and his wife, basically. So I took over one of the bedrooms over there. And it's been kind of cozy. I got to say, he's got a nice home. I smuggled my bathrobe and my slippers out before I fled Malibu, so I find myself sitting in his living room every day, my bathrobe and my slippers, drinking my cup of coffee, and then Drew comes in.
Like, is he feeding you? Are you eating on the couch? Like, what level of interaction are you having dinner with him and his wife every day? Is there anything else weird that I might want to ask there?
I took Drew out to dinner last night to a nice steakhouse in Pasadena because he's been so generous. I took him and his wife out to dinner the week before that. I've been bringing home food and been trying not to leach, as much as possible, buying big sacks of coffee and stuff like that. But, a couple bottles of water, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it is weird. I did not think I'd be doing this at this stage of my life. Or actually, I probably did if you got hold of me when I was 19. I would have assumed I'd be sleeping on someone's couch.
Right, because you could not get the job as the Los Angeles firefighter because, sadly, Adam, you're white. It is what it is. What are you going to do with that? All right, so we're going to talk about some LA fire stuff because you've been right in the center of that, literally and figuratively, actually, for years. And then we'll do some presidential politics stuff to wrap up the week. But one other thing before we start, when can you get back into your house? I mean, have they even given you any indication that you'll be able to go back to Malibu anytime soon, or are they telling anyone anything?
No, they're pretty tight-lipped about info. Lots of speculation, but the speculation is like, well, maybe a month, maybe 6 months.
Crazy.
It's really weird. There's the information. It comes out in little dribs and drabs, but hardly anything. For instance, I don't know when the power's coming back on. I don't know when the water, plumbing, sewage, gas. I don't know when the utilities are coming back on. They don't tell you. So there's also a sort of element of it's toxic. I mean, I don't really care because I worked on construction sites my whole life.
Yeah.
So like breathing stuff in, you get kind of used to a toxic work environment when you work construction because there's guys welding and grinding and there's plumes of smoke and it's like I worked in cabinet shops. It was like dust everywhere and junk in the air, but the folks who live in Malibu do not like the toxic environment. I'm all right with it, but now it's like, well, everything is burned down. Everything had asbestos in it or lead in it or heavy metals in it. All the furniture with all the foam and all the junk, all the plastic, it all burnt to the ground. And now it's some sort of toxic bouillabaisse and who wants to return to that? And what happens when the wind starts blowing and you're blowing this toxic dust cloud around? So we have to wait till it rains. I mean, there's a lot of speculation, not a lot of answers.
Yeah, I have 3 syllables for you, my friend. You know what they are?
Hmm.
Florida. I've been working on you. I've been working. I know. You're probably going to Vegas. Okay. All right, let me throw to an ad real quick and then we'll get into it. This time of year, many of us start thinking about healthy goals, losing weight, exercising more, or eating better. But let's be honest, a goal without a plan is a plan to fail. That's why Prolon's 5-day program is such a game changer. It gives you all the tools to turn your resolutions into results with a science-backed plan that's simple to follow. Here's how it works. Prolon's fasting mimicking diet is a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes your body while making your cells believe they're fasting. Researched and developed for decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by leading U.S. medical centers, Prolon promotes healthy blood sugar levels, enhanced skin appearance, fat loss, and improved energy and focus. The program's easy. It all starts with their 5-day kit, snacks, soups, and beverages designed to keep your body in a fasting state without any guesswork or planning, which is a relief after the chaos of the holidays. Here's what's even more impressive. Studies show that 3 consecutive cycles of Prolon can reduce your biological age by an average of 2.5 years and your waist circumference by 1.5 inches. And right now, just in time for the new year, Prolon is offering Rubin Report listeners 15% off their 5-day nutrition program for your post-holiday glow-up. Just go to prolonlife.com/Dave to claim your discount. That's PROLONLIFE.com/Dave for 15% off. Start your year feeling rejuvenated with Prolon. All right, so Adam, I want to start with this clip from Bill Maher because you went on a rant on your show last week, basically saying to people, "Hey, you guys voted for it, you kind of deserved it." Well, here is Bill Maher, who did vote for Gavin Newsom, and I believe did vote for Karen Bass, and he went on quite a tirade on Real Time, which came back for the season debut this week.
Able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain. America is so partisan now that even when there's a disaster of any kind, so many people choose to defend their own team, even over death. A lot of Democrats in this one-party state this week went right to, "Don't blame politicians, you can't do anything about the wind," which is exactly half true. The wind part. Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very complicated. That's why I pay 13% of my income in the state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this. LA's Mayor Karen Bass, the Nero of American politics, was fiddling in Ghana while the city burned and later placed the blame on 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. Yeah, that's not that long a time. Maybe look in the history books to see how our ancestors handled it back in 2011. I've heard people say, "Do you want to pay more taxes to fund this?" No. I want you to use the exorbitant taxes you already collect to prioritize it.
Adam, that's the part I want to focus on right there. The sort of realization for the lefties that just throwing money at things doesn't really work. He said earlier that the 13% goes to people who I assume are doing the right thing. But I'm pretty sure now that you're living, you're a Druze, but that your home is in a place surrounded by burned homes and infrastructure and everything else. You're not assuming they're doing much of anything, are you?
No, and it's a really flawed concept, the thing of, because it's a Democratic thing all the time. They do this sort of underfunded, they lack resources. Okay, we just spent $24 billion on homelessness, and it's worse. So
Yep.
Is that a resource issue? And what school systems spend the most per student on their kids with horrible results? You know what I mean? Like they go, the lack of resources. I don't know. If a private school can get much better results for half the cost, then is it resources? Is parents staying at home, at night and making sure their kids do their homework? How much does that cost?
Mm-hmm.
Getting the kid up in the morning, preparing them, giving them breakfast and sending them to school and making sure they're on time and being involved. How much does that cost? So it's a long Democratic lie essentially about resources all the time. Yeah, Bill Maher, I don't know, maybe Bill Maher makes 25 million bucks a year. I don't know. He makes a fair bit off the show. He does a lot of touring. He makes good money. So if Bill Maher is at, and by the way, he's at the top of the bracket. So he's paying, $3 million, 3.5 million a year just alone in extra state taxes, and nothing's coming out the other end. And that's the way it always works. There's no amount of money. We have a bullet train that's $60 billion over budget. We don't have anything. Like what do you, I don't even really equate money to results in a straight line at all. Who spends more money than we spend? Who taxes higher? We have a thing in California, which is, well, we have super high taxes for gasoline, but then that tax money goes to the roads, except for we have the worst roads. So
are you telling me, Adam, that just throwing money at things and endlessly funding the boondoggle that never does anything, are you saying that's short-sighted, that's not going to work?
I'm saying it can't work because it's sort of fundamentally flawed. It doesn't work macro or micro. Like, I think if you had a son who was a ne'er-do-well son who liked to do drugs and stay up all night, you just sort of kept giving them more money. You feel like that would work on that kid? I mean, it never
I don't know.
does.
How did it work for Hunter Biden? I guess that would be the answer.
He had his own way of earning money by going to Ukraine.
Fair, right? True. He was a Ukrainian energy specialist, the crackhead.
Right.
Really amazing.
Right.
Now, I want to show you something. It's actually related to budget cuts, too. So it's going to slightly
Wait a second. Can I yell about Bill Maher for a second?
Yes, go.
Okay. I have been saying into a microphone for almost 30 years because my background is as a contractor. I've said a million times, live in your rent control apartment in Santa Monica and walk to the Whole Foods. In your vegan slippers, you have no beef with the government. Start a business, buy a house, try to pull a permit. You will then think like me. When you have to go down and deal with the city and go down to plan check and pull a permit and get the ability to add on a second bedroom or small business or whatever it is you're doing, start interfacing with the government, then tell me how you vote. I've said that a million years. Bill Maher had to deal with the government. About 3 years ago, he wanted to get solar in his house. Maybe it was more. Maybe it's 3 or 4 years ago. But Bill Maher had to go deal with the government and pull a permit and get solar in his house. And 2 years into trying to get a solar shack permitted and signed off on, he started to turn on the government. You're hearing Bill Maher 2.0. This is Bill Maher who tried to pull a permit. Now, all of a sudden, he's talking about regulation, if you notice. He's talking about government being too big. He's talking about too much red tape. You never heard these words out of Bill Maher's mouth from 0 to age 62 and a half. Now he never shuts up about it because he had to go pull a permit. That's what happened to him.
A conservative is just a liberal mugged by reality. I think that's what you're saying there.
And all the people in the Palisades and in Malibu who are deep blue thinkers, they're going to run up against the permit process themselves.
Yeah, they're going to get red-pilled real quick while they try to rebuild their houses, and they're told, no, you can't. You literally can't do anything for 2 years while we just have stacks of paper on the desk. Take a look at this video, though, because this was 21 days before the fire. Here are LA firefighters at a public hearing warning about what could happen if they cut budget. So this is a slightly reverse version of what we were just talking about, but I think people will see.
If we cut one position, if we close one station, if we close one resource, the residents of Los Angeles are going to pay the ultimate sacrifice, and someone will die.
Just last month, fire personnel packed an LA Fire Commission meeting, begging the city to rethink the budget.
These cuts came at exactly the wrong time. with calls for services at an all-time high and our firefighters at their breaking point.
We are straining our department's resources beyond the brink, and we cannot continue on this path.
City Councilwoman Tracy Park was there too.
Okay, so what they're talking about there was about a $17.5 million budget cut for the fire department. So we're both agreeing that just throwing money at things is not the answer, but also making sure that these people have the proper training, have the proper equipment, that there are literally enough of them. That would be that competent governance that I guess Bill is looking for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the average cop makes $53,000 a year and you want more cops, then you're going to have to pay for more cops. Like, I get that part of the budget. Of course, you and I are talking about these non-governmental organizations that advocate for the homeless or that advocate for, migrants who are fleeing poverty and persecution or whatever BS they're cooked up. And that money
or funding DEI departments at the fire department or the police department, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the analogy that I have and had, which is a Katrina, New Orleans kind of example, which is New Orleans is below sea level, so they need seawalls to protect them from the elements, essentially. And the seawalls were not maintained properly or fell into disrepair, something with the Army Corps of Engineers, and then Katrina hit, and then disaster. So you cannot control the weather, and you can't control the wind, and you can't control Katrina, and you can't do any of this, but you can mitigate it.
Exactly.
You can build seawalls, and if you have effective seawalls, then you can mitigate the danger. And so, clearing the forest floor and trimming the trees and filling the aqueducts and having more firemen and having more firehouses and so on and so forth is the mitigation that we're talking about. That's what Bill Maher's talking about. What are you doing? This is a problem. And I think it speaks to a newer breed of politician. It's sort of like, let's break it down, Dave. You have Trump, and then you have Kamala Harris, right? And half the country likes Trump and half the country likes Kamala Harris. Now, Karen Bass likes Kamala Harris, and Gavin Newsom like Kamala Harris. Who's Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris is someone who just speaks in sort of vague circles about feeling good and dignity and having a seat at the table and nobody's illegal and everyone is welcome and these vaguitudes. There's not, and Trump speaks in terms of boots on the ground. We're going to take this, we're going to tariff that, we're going to lower this, we're going to raise that. Just nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts people and the vaguitude people they don't really see eye to eye on anything. But when the fire comes or the storm comes or the Chinese come, you want the nuts and bolts city. You do not want the vaguitude city. That's what we have. We have Karen Bass. She's in Ghana doing a celebratory dance during the fires. She doesn't know what to do. And by the way, do you hear any answers from the vaguitude people?
No, not only are there...
Every speech Gavin Newsom has given in the last 5 years has been about, California, come here, you're welcome to love who you love. And God, I don't hear any talk about aqueducts or capturing rainwater or clearing the forest. I don't hear anything from Karen Bass about it. Every speech is some sort of good vibes thing that has nothing to do with nuts and bolts.
Right. When your house is burning down, you suddenly don't care that the firefighter who's saving you is a black lesbian or not. But love is love in California, and that's illustrated by the fact that you and Dr. Drew now live together. It's very exciting, and by the way, I'm completely fine with that. I want to throw to your friend.
You would be so proud.
I want to throw to your friend, your good buddy Gavin Newsom, because this video is making the rounds. At the end of 24, so just a couple of weeks ago, he did his California best moment. And one of them has to do with a little bit of something that might have had something to do with why the reservoirs weren't filled and that they removed some dams. And yeah, we saved some fish. Take a look.
It's Governor Gavin Newsom, and I'm here with the top moments that defined California in 2024. Let's get started. As I speak, The fish are now swimming freely for the first time in over 100 years. It shows you how resilient Mother Nature is, how resilient salmon are. And we were able to transfer some of the land that was underwater for decades and decades to tribes that have been there since time immemorial.
Adam, the fish are swimming freely for the first time in 100 years.
Yeah.
Have we been too harsh with this man?
He loves him some Delta smelt, man. He's a smelt man. I mean, obviously these people have been captured. I mean, it's a really interesting, at least time for historians to examine, which is a small, very small group of lunatics has captured one party and forced old, decrepit guys like Joe Biden to get out there and speak endlessly about the trans community.
Yeah.
Or Delta Smelt, who, again, I don't know what percentage of the country cares about Dylan Mulvaney. He goes and visits Biden. Biden doesn't even know who he or she is. He's got to be confused. He doesn't care. Nobody cares. I don't know why this very small group, you know, the Coastal Commission is like 9 retarded people who hate their dads and live nowhere near the coast because they don't make any money. Who decided that, like, a really, you know, they do this all the time. They go like, well, you know, the left goes, oh, the Klan. Oh, we're not governed by the Klan. The Klan is super small, and I don't know anyone in the Klan. And neither does anyone I know who is conservative. But that's the accusation. But you guys are really governed by your version of the Klan, which is asswipe environmentalists.
Well, fortunately, they are not in charge of the federal government anymore. We'll get to that in a second, but just a bit more on how California has just been so rotted out. I'm sorry that every time I bring you on, it's so depressing about California. Listen, move to Florida or Vegas, and then we'll talk about good things. You know what I mean?
Okay. You're
please,
right,
please. It would be a pleasure. But look at this. So, you know, when you talk about how the rot, it's this small group of people that push all of these bad ideas. This is another video that's been making the rounds lately from an LA Fire Department official. And just listen to the drivel. And when you talk about sort of what they should be focused on versus what they actually were spending their days doing.
My name is Captain Jennifer Wilcox. My pronouns are she, her. I am a Caucasian female wearing a black shirt uniform with eyewear and a black hat.
Were you taking your black eyewear off out of offense there?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the one that was clinically insane was the black woman who was given her speech about wanting to have people that look like you save you, which is insane projection racism. It is such insane racism. I've been screaming about this for a million years ago. The fire department needs to reflect the community. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Why? Listen, LAX, TSA at LAX is about 86% black. Guess who doesn't care? This traveler. Don't care.
They don't seem to be particularly competent, but that's a whole other issue.
Well, yeah, they're angry, but still, I don't need them to reflect my community of Malibu.
Right.
So we're good. I'm just traveling through here. You're just doing a job. That's all. And when it comes to fire, I would say, you know, maybe you could make some argument for African-American cops on the beat in a predominantly black community. I don't like that we have to make that argument, but okay, you could make that argument. And maybe you could make that argument for some school teachers in a black community or something, but not firemen, not at all. It's of no consequence what they are when they show up to your house at night and smoke so thick you can't see your hand in front of your face, what they are.
Yeah, and that video you're referring to where the woman says, you know, she basically says, look, and if you're a guy and I can't lift you up because you're bigger than me, well, you got yourself into that problem. Like, it's genuinely psychotic. I want to show two more.
But there's the thing that's a little more psychotic about it, and be super fast, is They filmed it. They edited it.
Right.
They put music under it, and somebody released it.
Right.
That's the psychotic part. The part where nobody raised their hand and went, hello, we can't have this crazy lesbian speaking for us. This is insane.
Right, guys.
What she just said is the opposite of what we do.
Right. We have one job, guys. It's literally to save lives. If you've hit that age where your body hurts all the time, listen up. Before you reach for another painkiller, let me tell you about a little-known turmeric hack for pain and inflammation that could change everything. You've probably heard that turmeric is great for fighting inflammation and joint pain. But here's the catch. Not all turmeric is created equal. A leading pain doctor from Connecticut discovered a special turmeric extract that's 200 times more powerful than regular turmeric. And when he shared this turmeric hack with his patients, the results were nothing short of amazing. This extract doesn't just mask the pain, it attacks the pain at its source, switching it off like a light bulb. Dr. Josh, the mind behind this breakthrough, has spent over 20 years helping hundreds of thousands of Americans break free from constant aches and stiffness. And his turmeric hack has been the secret to their success. Say goodbye to expensive surgeries, painful injections, and over-the-counter meds that don't really work, and say hello to living pain-free. I've tried it myself, and the difference has been incredible. But here's the thing. You can't just use any old turmeric. If you want to learn more about Dr. Josh, his turmeric hack, and how you can incorporate it into your daily routine, go to goldenrevive.com/Rubin. The link is also below this video in the description. Just click it to start your journey to a pain-free, healthier life. I want to do 2 more quick clips on this, and then we'll get to all the political stuff of the week, because it was, I don't know if you heard, but Donald Trump is president again. But Bill Burr, comedian Bill Burr, was on with your buddy, Jimmy Kimmel, and they were kind of mocking the people who are upset about really much of what we've discussed so far.
Oh, thanks. Very good to see you. I heard you had to evacuate your home. Yes. Like most people, I had to. I got lucky, the winds moved, but, the fire was coming and all that stuff. So I feel lucky. Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet,
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean? And then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds. You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in L.A. sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
Adam, I know as a comic, you don't want to go off on comics, and I know you do feel a little more warmly about Jimmy Kimmel than I do. But the general notion there of just like making fun of the people that actually are addressing the issues, it's kind of exactly why people hate Hollywood, I think.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, look, we have people in charge of things. So there was a captain of the Exxon Valdez, and that thing ran ashore and leaked 2 billion barrels of oil into the Puget Sound or wherever it was. At some point, we want to know what that guy was up to and why he did it, and could we prevent this from happening again? And
he was drunk, right? Wasn't he drunk?
Yeah, right. I know. I think he was a drunk. But you know what? When you hire a sea captain, you have to know they have a drinking problem. They all drink. That's what captains do. They drink rum.
What are you going to do?
Even the parrot was drunk. All right. The point is this. Remember the police commission officer, whatever, chief in New Orleans a few weeks before the fire? And she's up there and she's going, now's not the time for blame. We can't point fingers. We have to. Of course, now's not the time for blame. It's like, your football coach, you just get blown out of the Super Bowl by 42 points. You can't go up to the podium for the presser and say, now's not the time for blame. Now is the time. It's exactly the time for blame. So, yes, let's start blaming people. And the way if you never blame anyone, and if everyone did a great job, then it's bound to happen again. Just like if the football coach who got blown out by 42 points in the Super Bowl did everything right and everyone did a great job, well, then there's no reason to tweak anything or fix anything or trade anybody. Yes, they're a bunch of dead people and a bunch of houses burned to the ground. Now's the perfect time to blame.
To that exact point, I want to throw to my friend Douglas Murray. He was on Rita Panahi's show on Sky News, and he really drills down the point that enough is enough, and hopefully more people in Cali are going to realize it.
If you even now look at the website that she has, her bio, it's all about the fact that she's a diverse woman, that she's a proud member of the LGBTQIA plus community, and that her priority is diversity. The numbskull we just heard from there, also in the fire department, I hope very much that LA voters and others take note of this. In the end, these people who talked the diversity talk didn't know what they were doing in the real world. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's not about somebody who looks like you coming to your house. It's about somebody coming to your house. It's about somebody saving your house from burning down. I spoke to residents of LA earlier this week whose home and all their belongings had been burnt to nothing and has had their whole neighborhood. And they said to me, not one fire truck showed up. Not one, Rita. Wow. Now, if I was a resident there and I'd heard this guff for years about how important it is that a diverse woman of color should come and how empowering it is that a lesbian is head of a... No, you just want competent fire authorities. And that is exactly what LA has not had.
Adam, so he's obviously reiterating some of what we said here. So I guess my real question to you then would be, what is rock bottom? Do you think this is finally enough when you're talking to your neighbors now? Are they going to break away? Does Cali have any chance of righting that Exxon Valdez or let's say the Titanic before it hits well, maybe it did hit the iceberg already.
I think this is it. I've talked to many people about this for long periods of time. You know, when Dr. Drew and I are drinking Postum in bed and just sort of sharing what the day, you know.
Who's the big spoon? Who's the big spoon?
Oh, I'd have to say me. I'm a side sleeper.
Yeah.
Drew's normally a back sleeper, but I've kind of rolled him over quarter turn, you know, just to get the spoon going. But it is it's unseasonably cold out here, so it's not a gay thing. But it's
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've been saying for a million years about California. I would talk to Dr. Drew about it a lot. You know, I'd go, when is enough going to be enough? Like, when are we going to change? Because remember, we just had a runoff and an attempt to get Newsom out.
Yep.
And we also just had a mayoral thing with Karen Bass. So between Karen Bass and Newsom, this is recent stuff. And they both won.
Yep.
You know, so and by the way, you know, the only one further left than Newsom could be Karen Bass. Karen Bass gave a speech to the Democratic National Committee about 2 years ago that they took down or they hid or something. But she basically blamed homelessness on income inequality, which means you're basically a communist and you're an idiot at this point. And there's no chance in hell of you solving the homeless problem if it's because of income inequality. If that's what you believe, then you're an idiot and we'll never solve this problem. So she's horrible, he's horrible, and they both got a big thumbs up from the American voter basically 2 years ago. So I said, when is this going to change? And the answer is, well, when we bottom out. And then I would say all the time, why do we have to bottom out? I don't get it. If your son, I would use the analogy that if you came into your son's room and you found Coke spoons and syringes around and prescription drugs, would you have to wait until he flatlined before you got him help? Or would you intervene at this point and go, I think we need to seek some help? Well, there's an issue here. No one could define what the bottom
that's
was,
the issue.
But burning to the ground is probably the bottom.
Well, I suppose we shall see. And before we get to Trump and the good stuff, because it really was an incredible week, there's an elderly man that you're not going to see much more of lately. And he gave a speech that he's, I would say, fairly poorly read off a teleprompter saying goodbye to all of us. And he addressed what's going on in California.
Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country, from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history.
Adam, do you want me to ask a question, or do you want to just handle that one?
Well, I've been thinking, with Kamala gone and Biden gone, who's going to agitate black people? You know what I mean? Somebody's going to have to step up their game up on MSNBC or CNN, because the 1 and 2 agitators of black folk are now gone, and they don't have a microphone. So that's an issue, number one. Number two, it's weird. It must be weird to at his age be sort of collected and turned out with crazy ideology at a very advanced age. Okay, so Joe Biden is 82 years old. When Joe Biden was 65, I didn't hear a word from him about the trans community, the gay community, or climate change, or whatever he's calling it, which means, Dave, you could think very differently than you think right now, somewhere in your early 70s or late 60s, which I think is sort of an insane proposition. Now, it just shows he's an empty vessel and will say anything about anything.
We have no idea what he actually believes. That's sort of a complete sidebar in some sense.
Right.
What he actually believes, we can only take it on what he reads off the prompter.
Right. Now, the climate change, my whole thing with all the climate change people is, let's just do this. Let's just agree that you're right 100%. Climate change. That's what we're dealing with. That's why we have this situation. Okay. Now what's the plan? Electric leaf blowers? What is the plan? Getting China to do what? Getting India to do what? What is the plan? I'm with you. You're right. You're 100% right. Now what? Here we go. What's the plan?
Right. And of course, they don't have a plan. And at the micro level, and this Drew was making this point on the show a couple of weeks ago. I mean, at the micro level, it's like, well, if you do believe in climate change and you live in Cali, you've had the governor for years and years and years. You have the mayor of Los Angeles for years and years and years. You have a supermajority in the House forever in Cali. What did you guys do? So putting aside whether China or India are doing anything for it, it's like you guys did nothing yourself. Enough of the bad stuff. Let's get to the good stuff, the golden age. But first, let's talk about wrinkle filler. We've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now, one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. They hardly make a dent on your appearance, and some can even be harmful to your skin, he said. Recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. It's almost like Photoshop for your face. You may even be mad after seeing how easy it is to visibly erase your wrinkles from view, Lake told reporters. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. You can find out more about this yourself right now. Go to bhmd1.com/Rubin or click the link in the description box below. That's bhmd1.com/Rubin. Again, go watch the video at bhmd1.com/Rubin right now, or just click the link in the description box below. All right, so the golden age is here, and it is being ushered in by a golden man who is now promising to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion from all forms of government.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life.
You think that's all we needed here, Adam? Like, we just needed to get to this moment to reverse enough of this stuff and then just what he's good at, particularly, I think, is signaling to people like, we're not going to do it anymore. And then everyone else will figure out ways in their own life, in their own business to replicate that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there is a core that lies within most people, a sort of pragmatic core. When you kind of hear something that's straight and makes sense, even people that are captured can sort of go, all right. Also, the whole diversity experiment thing is just blown up in their faces.
Yeah.
I mean, look no further than Kamala Harris. I mean, idiot Joe Biden just went, oh, well, I'm going to find a vice president who's a woman of color and others need not apply. And so he got a woman of color who happens to be a dingbat and set the movement back 30 years. I mean, she did horrible damage to the whole movement because now it's like, I don't know. That's a horrible. It's basically you going, it's 1965 and you go, I'm the New York Giants. I'm going to get a black quarterback. And people go, okay, but the guy's got to be a good quarterback. Any black quarterback is going to work. And then the guy goes and throws 6 picks for every touchdown he throws. And now you've hurt the movement, if you think about it. Also, what are some examples of this working out? Is it Mayor London Breed of San Francisco? Is it the former mayor of Chicago? Like, is it Karen Bass? Like this notion of like, well, women and women of color would make better. I don't see any evidence that they make better anything. They don't make worse. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin or their sexual proclivities. We need qualified people. That's it. In terms of the fire chief, in terms of the mayor, in terms of the vice president, we just need qualified. That's all. It's always been that way. And what
Adam Carolla, the bigot.
Flawed. Yes, good. What they did is inherently flawed. It wouldn't work. It can't work. I mean, it is, and it's also kind of insulting to whatever group you're trying to push along. I would argue.
Right. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations. Oh, you guys, we better give you guys some extra cookies because you can't get cookies on your own.
Right.
It's actual racism, just with the veneer of pleasantness around it. Since we're talking about climate change and everything else, one of the other things that, of course, the Democrats have tried to do is push this ridiculous Green New Deal, which had far more to do with rejiggering our economy than doing anything as it pertains to clean air or water. Donald Trump just signed an executive order that will unleash American energy.
We have Alaska, sir. This is an executive order relating to unleashing Alaska's potential as an energy reservoir for the entire nation.
And what about ANWR?
I believe that would be included in aspects of the order.
So we're opening up ANWR.
The reason I wanted to show that clip, Adam, was because he's even asking more questions as he's signing these things. Like he's directionally right when it comes to, hey, let's be energy independent and we still do need fossil fuels and we can look more to nuclear and all those things. But he's still, as he's doing it, the point is there's wherewithal there. And what a contrast, man, to where we were last week.
Oh, my God. It's so sad that so many people supported and defended Biden for as long as they did. And the thing that's really insidious about Biden is I think his supporters, if you gave him a beer, would go, look, all right, the guy's no genius, and I don't even really know what his policies are, and he probably doesn't know what his policies are. And yes, maybe some of his policies did hurt us at the border with, energy creation, things like that. Fine. The economy, fine. But he's a fair and decent man who loves this country. And it's like, no, he's not. He's a criminal who's the head of a criminal enterprise who has involved most everyone in his family in his criminal behavior. And that's why he had to pardon them all. Like he is everything the left hates about politicians for the last 70 years. All this sort of my mom, lefty, these corrupt Washington guys.
Right.
That's everything they hate is going to Ukraine and going to China and going to other rogue nations and hammering checks because of nepotism. That's everything they've always hated. And Joe Biden is a poster child for that. Now, Donald Trump looks like the poster child for that, but Joe Biden is the poster child for that.
It's extraordinary. I mean, even just this whole week when Biden pardoned his brother and some of the other family members, and then you probably saw it, but there was this great compilation video going around from 4 years ago with all of these MSNBC and the usual suspects on CNN basically saying Trump's going to pardon his children and how criminal it is. Trump didn't pardon his children, and Biden actually did, and now they're all taking the completely reverse step. One more clip for you that I think ties this all nicely together. We are also... Everyone calm down, guys. We're withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords.
But I'm immediately withdrawing from the unfair, one-sided Paris Climate Accord ripoff. The United States will not sabotage our own industries while China pollutes with impunity. You know,
Adam, I'm a simple man, you know, so maybe you can help me with this. We were in the Paris Accords, then Trump got us out of the Paris Accords, then we went back in the Paris Accords, and now we're going to get out of the Paris Accords. Did the Paris Accords do anything during those in and outs, those come and goes that we did? Are we going to be okay? How long do we got, man?
Well, look, someone's got to get into John Kerry's private jet and ask him. He's probably flying. He's in the air somewhere now in a G5 somewhere, and going to Davos perhaps to save the environment. I don't know, but we're going to have to ask John Kerry if he's not, when he lands in one of his multiple private jets, what is going on with the Paris Accords.
It's very sad. Adam, on that note, I guess my only other question would be, does Dr. Drew wear tighty whities or boxer shorts?
He's a boxer brief guy, which is a traditional sort of take on a boxer, but boxer's kind of your dad's boxer. He's a boxer brief.
I mean, you guys really should be doing an upgraded version of The Odd Couple. Like it's so obvious you're Oscar and you're rolling in and you're, you know, like you got your cigar and you're doing your thing. And there he is trying to live a life with his wife.
I know. And he just had a grandbaby too. But they had to make more coffee this morning because I poured 3 cups before they got to it, you know.
Well, joking aside, Adam, good luck with the fiasco over there. And, you know, Florida's closing up shop pretty soon, but I know a couple people, so we can still get you in, you know.
God, so tempted. I know. I'm putting the duh in Florida. That's what I would say.
All right. Thanks to Adam Carolla. You guys know where to find him, and the link to his podcast is down below. Friday, so no post-game show. We will see you on Monday. I'm very happy to be in a place, in a country, and certainly at a conference where I can say the word liberal and you guys know what it means. Because, from an American perspective, if I say to someone that I'm a liberal, and I wrote a book, my first book, Don't Burn This Book, I think is the best-selling book on classical liberalism in the last 40 years in America. But if I tell people I'm a liberal, they think that means a progressive. They think that means a leftist. And the word has just been completely mangled. So it's very refreshing to come here and even talk to some of your members of parliament who are in the Liberal Party. And in essence, they have a lot more in common with the conservatives of America. That's much of what we will talk about up here tonight. So I thought, if we're going to talk about the right and where does liberty fit in this new right, and most of this, of course, I'll do from an American perspective, but a lot of it obviously translates to Australia, I think we have to start by talking about what happened to the left. And the reason we have to do that is because so much of what defines the right today, what defines MAGA, what defines Trump, what defines really the conservative movement, is a reaction to the excesses of the left. So, you know, there's always a conversation about when did the left gain all this power? How did they do it? Most of the answers, usually there was a sort of 40-year march through the institutions that most of you are aware of. They really just took over higher education. They moved down into high schools and then really into middle schools and even elementary schools. And that's, of course, where we got all of this woke stuff and the gender identity stuff and the, I would say, upending of our history and confusion around why America is fundamentally good and what our values are and all of these things. And they did it, and not only did they do it while I would say conservative-leaning people, or in this country I can say some of the good liberals, were out there building businesses and building families and actually doing things, changing industries, all of these things. And the progressives were very committed to the cause. And I think that that really is how they, in essence, destroyed or overtook the Democrat Party in America, because the good liberals, which I suspect most of you in this room probably, from an American perspective, 20 years ago would have been Democrats, maybe sort of Bill Clinton Democrats, something like that. And that was sort of the mainstream take on liberalism. But the progressives came in and they were sort of liberals on steroids, right? Probably a little too many steroids. And they went in and they decided they would scream about everything, and everyone that disagreed with them was a racist and a bigot and a homophobe and all of the slurs. And it kind of worked. Actually, more than that, it more than kind of worked. It fully worked. They have, in essence, at this point, in 2025, purged all of the good liberals and pushed them to the right. So for the purposes of today's talk, we're talking about what's going on the right. And I'm really fascinated by this because I was a person of the left. I was in a lot of progressive circles. And about 10 years ago, I started saying, hey, liberals, we're not acting liberally. We're not defending free speech. We're silencing people. This was at the beginning of, cancel culture and wokeness and all of these things. And there was a real feeling that all the liberals were going to sort of be lost because the progressives were taking over the Democrat Party and the liberals would have nowhere to go because they would never team up with the conservatives. But then something amazing happened around 2016, really 2015, and that was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump came in, and he was a Republican, so he was a conservative, but everyone knew he really wasn't a conservative, right? I mean, no one in their right mind, I think, thinks that Donald Trump is sort of a religious conservative, that he was sort of a New York liberal real estate guy, spoke gruffly, had to do all sorts of things in his previous life as a businessman and a TV host and all of those things. And he then came in, and he actually, and this is a point I've really tried to make to a lot of people, and I think they get it, but it takes some time. He actually liberalized the conservative party. That's actually what MAGA is. Make America Great Again really is that he took the conservatives who were kind of okay with just losing elections and not really doing much. We do some nation building across the world. We do some tax cuts, things like that. But then he actually widened the tent. He widened the tent. One example would be that he is the first incoming first-time president who was ever for marriage equality. Now, that certainly is not a conservative principle at all, right? Barack Obama, liberal, progressive hero, when he came in first time around, he was not for marriage equality. So in that sense, Donald Trump was more liberal, actually, than Barack Obama. Donald Trump also, he's been sometimes he's for tax cuts, sometimes he's for spending bills. He basically has been a big mix of things, but what did that do? It basically gave a home to the disaffected liberals, right? So when I talk about the disaffected liberals, if you just look at some of the people in Donald Trump's cabinet right now, he has Bobby Kennedy running HHS. Bobby Kennedy, his last name, Kennedy. This is a Democrat. He is supposed to be a Democrat. As a matter of fact, when I had him on my show when he was running, just in this last election, or he was running in the primary, which the Democrats basically made sure that there was no chance that he was going to beat Biden in the primaries, I had him on my show, and it was the first time we met. And I said to him, Bobby, I don't know if you're going to be a Republican by the end of this thing, but I promise you, you will not be a Democrat. And if you go back and watch the clip, you can see his eyes light up because he knew something was really, really rotten with the Democrat Party, that he as a liberal, as an old school liberal, limited government, laissez-faire economics, individual rights, all of the things that you guys believe in, he knew that the runway on that with this progressive movement was very, very short. And he knew that the plane would never get off the ground because they simply would not follow him. So somebody like Bobby Kennedy ends up in Donald Trump's cabinet. Then you could look at Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was a progressive. She was a real progressive too. She wasn't just a liberal. She was on the left side of that. And she ran for president in the primary against Joe Biden. She was actually the last candidate still going. You know, they all cut their deals. Pete Buttigieg and some of the other, Elizabeth Warren and the rest of them, Bernie Sanders, they all cut their deals and they all dropped out on the same day. But Tulsi Gabbard stayed in and she fought Joe Biden as long as she could. Hillary Clinton said she was a Russian asset, all of that stuff. But she was a Democrat. She was a lefty and a liberal. And now she is the director of national intelligence. And there's many other people like this. And Donald Trump also has brought in plenty of gay people and black people and all of the other things that don't really matter, of course. And he didn't hire them or bring them into the cabinet because of their identity. He brought them in because they're qualified. And that is a fundamental difference than what the Democrats have done over the last couple of years, where they brought in people specifically. I mean, Joe Biden said specifically that he brought in Kamala Harris as VP because she was a black woman, which is, from a liberal perspective, the most demeaning thing you could possibly say to someone, right? Why would you ever want to be hired for a job because of your skin color and your gender? It's completely and utterly irrelevant. Are you qualified to do the job? Now, from where I stand, she obviously was not qualified to do the job, and I think that was sort of borne out in her VP tenure and then her subsequent campaign. But as they purged all of these people, and as Donald Trump widened the MAGA tent, that gets us to the topic today. So how do we hold a political movement that has very different perspectives, that has very different policy prescriptions? You have these liberals that are generally a little more big government. They want more social services. They're obviously more liberal when it comes to, let's say gay marriage, which the ship has sailed on that, so it almost feels silly to talk about, or abortion would be a good one. You have now all of these people like Bobby Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Rogan. I mean, think about Joe Rogan, who supported Donald Trump. Joe Rogan is a pot-smoking, MMA-watching podcaster, right? Mushroom-eating podcaster who no one in their right mind, and probably a lot more than that, but nobody in their right mind would think is a conservative. But he supported Donald Trump. Elon Musk, probably the single best example. Elon Musk, lifelong Democrat, until the midterms before this last election, had never voted Republican once. Then finally, when he moved a bunch of his companies to Texas from California because of progressive Gavin Newsom, he finally voted for a Republican congressperson in his district, took all of his companies out of California, high taxes, high regulation, moves them to Texas. I mean, that's the most perfect example of watching the entire country sort by politics right now. But certainly would never have considered himself a Republican. And now he's in that tent. So Elon, Tulsi, Bobby, me, Rogan, all of these people that 7-10 years ago all were liberals are now part of the Republican Party. And interestingly, if you were to look at the Democrat Party, and I also have to say, it's quite fun coming here because you guys get all these references, right? Like there's no political person from an American perspective that I can bring up that I think you guys don't know. You're following all of it. Everyone has now come across. And the question really is, what's left on the Democrat side? Is there any room for the Democrats to have liberals? And there's basically one. There's a guy by the name of John Fetterman who is he's a Democrat from Pennsylvania. This is a guy who quite literally about 5 years ago, he had a couple strokes and had brain damage. And as he has healed, as his brain has healed, he is becoming more conservative. It's incredible to watch. I don't know if any of you saw the movie Awakenings with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams. It's literally that story. He is coming out of the coma and suddenly he's like, I'm for limited government. It's incredible. But they're primarying him. The Democrats are now primarying the one moderate left in the party. And then, of course, there's a couple people in Hollywood that still basically get it. There's, Bill Maher, who's, I think, been the standard bearer for American liberalism for the past 40 years. Unfortunately, I think he gets to the wrong voting conclusion, but he's trying to stick it out with the Democrats. But now, so what do you do on the right? How do you defend individual rights? How do you defend liberty? How do you defend the things that we all care about when you're now sort of in bed with people that have different views? This is where I should bring up my friend Charlie Kirk for a moment, because Charlie, who was a good friend of mine, and we met around 2017, and we did a lot of these college events together. I was on the left and Charlie was on the right, and we debated on stage at colleges. It was before a lot of this stuff went crazy, and when we were doing it, we would go to these colleges and everybody would say to us the same thing. We would get the same criticism every single gig that we did, which was, oh, you know, you guys are making a big deal about this college thing, but when these kids get out to the real world, you know, the real world will show them what's up. And what we found was that the real world basically folded like a wet paper bag, right? They actually got out of colleges, they took over all of these institutions. But Charlie did something really interesting, which is, and this is, I think, gets to the crux of the challenge that we will have to merge conservatives and liberals in a healthy way, which is really what the American experiment is all about. And it's why I say that Donald Trump has been defending conservatism and liberalism from the forces on both sides that would pull us apart. Charlie had his own personal religious beliefs, right? He was an evangelical Christian, he had his faith, he talked about it very publicly, which is really not that welcomed in most American circles, certainly not in the mainstream. So we had differences, right? He absolutely believed in traditional marriage. He certainly was not thrilled when the Supreme Court changed the law on that. But he also understood fundamentally that America was not a religious theocracy. And that's more of the liberal side of him, that he could have his faith and then also understand that America was a secular society and that it's up to you personally to figure out how you integrate those two things. Well, that's partly what I see the challenge will now be for the people on the right, because, you know, Donald Trump's 79 years old, obviously this is going to be his last term, and the Republican Party is going to have to figure out which way to go. And there are forces pulling it in all sorts of ways right now. It's quite bizarre, actually, because, you know, Donald Trump, he's only in the midst of the first year of this term. So he's got 3+ years to go. I've personally been very happy with virtually everything that he's done. But now there are forces in the media, and I would say within his own party, and this is, I would call this sort of like the Tucker Carlson wing, that really want to push America into much more of an isolationist position. I think there's an awful lot of scapegoating going on and a bunch of other things that maybe we can get to in the Q&A. And Donald Trump, I think, has been a sort of buffer against that. And if America is going to hold, and America is going to be a place where we can have all sorts of people from all walks of life, you know, one of the things that's most interesting to me being here in your incredible country is that, you know, Australia and the United States, we're basically geographically the same size, but we have 350 million people. As I understand it, you have about 27 million people. Think about how crazy that is, the difference, just the density of the amount of people. And then if you really think about how America, we were the place for the last, you know, we're rolling into our 250th anniversary next year. We were the shining beacon in the world where everyone from literally every corner on earth wanted to come to make a better life, and largely did that. But of course, the exchange in that is that you're going to have people that have different religious beliefs. You're going to have people that have different philosophic beliefs, that are going to have different lifestyles and different foods and different color, you know, different clothing and music and all of these things. And America, much, much better than Europe, integrated these people properly. I think you guys have done it fairly well. It seems, I have to say, on this trip, it seems a little different in some of your cities. I was in Melbourne, and it felt like the integration situation was not going that well. But I would need to be there a little bit more, perhaps, to see that. But America has done that, and that is the promise of liberalism. And if the conservatives and the MAGA movement is to last, they are going to have to pick which way. Which way are we going to go on this? Are we going to be an America that is going to lead the world, that is going to defend liberal Western values, individual rights, universal human rights? Or are we going to do something that is different? And again, there are forces that want to turn America more into a sort of traditionally Christian country, that want to do more. There's a wing of the Republican Party. I think you can see this with a little bit of the kind of Marjorie Taylor Greens and some of the other Congress people that want to turn it into something a little bit more actually like AOC or Bernie would want, where the government is going to do absolutely everything. So Trump is basically trying to hold a very tenuous position. How do we balance all of these things and keep the widest tent possible? I honestly don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible. What I've said to my audience all the time is, and what I've said to the Trump people and anyone who will listen, is that I will stake out the position to be on the liberal side of the MAGA movement. And as long as the people to the further right of that are willing to live in the same country as me, then we're going to be okay, and we can win an awful lot of elections, and we can fix an awful lot of things. Trump has largely fixed the immigration situation, and we've fixed the borders. The economy is turning around. There's a lot of, we're going in with ICE now, which I know a lot of people don't like, but we're fixing some of the problems for the first time in America in a long, long time. So that really is the challenge. Can the liberals and the people who want limited government and individual rights and understand you're going to be you could be fundamentally different than your neighbor, but that all fits within the American promise, that actually is what the founders intended, can they fit with the forces of a conservative movement that definitely have impulses not to be part of that? That will be the great challenge. That is what I'm going to continue to do. I think that's probably, in some sense, a little bit of what your political battles are about as well. How do you figure out the blend between, if I understand it correctly, your liberal party, which is, again, closer to our conservative party, probably has far more in common right now with parties on the right than parties on the left. But if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak too much about your politics, but that's my impression so far. And that will be the challenge, really, for all of Western nations. Where do the liberals fit? Is liberal democracy something worth defending? I absolutely think that it is, and that will be the challenge.